What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here as always on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade J.J. Williams, and today we continue through our look at the MCU chronological timeline with the controversial entry 2003's Hulk, starring Eric Bana, Jennifer Connelly, Sam Elliott, Nick Nolte, Josh Lucas, and Cara Buono. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. And like I said during the introduction, today is a controversial choice in the MCU chronological timeline, as I'm going to address 2003's Hulk. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hulk is not part of the MCU. The Eric Bana version is not part of the MCU. And I hear you and I get you. But from my standpoint, where I look at it, I believe it deserves its place within the MCU timeline. Primarily because I feel like this serves as a good origin story for the Hulk. And yeah, you can argue me that the opening scenes, the montage we get in the 2008 version, is how the MCU Hulk gets his powers. But it's never really addressed. Nobody says that's how he gets his powers. So for my money, this film serves as the origin story for that Hulk. Plus the fact that it ends with him in the Amazon rainforest, which pretty much is within Brazil. The majority of it is within Brazil. And when we find Ed Norton's Hulk in 2008, he's in a bottling plant in Brazil. On top of that, in the 2008 Hulk, General Ross makes a comment about how he's been crossing borders and laying low for 5 years. There's exactly a 5-year gap between this Hulk and that Hulk. So, like I said, for my money, this is the origin story, and I'm going to treat it as such. You guys can argue me if you want, but like we always say when me and Jeff get together to do the dads, everything is subjective. This is the way I look at it, okay? Our movie opens with David Banner, who's a genetics researcher for the United States government, who is trying to improve human DNA. His supervisor on the project is General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, and he has forbidden human experimentation, which forces David to experiment upon himself. David's wife, Edith, soon gives birth to a son, who they name Bruce, and over time, David realizes that Bruce has inherited some of his mutated DNA and attempts to find a cure. Once General Ross discovers David's dangerous experiments, he shuts down David's research. Out of revenge, David sets the base's gamma reactor to explode. Believing that Bruce is dangerous, David sets out to kill his own son, but accidentally ends up murdering Edith instead, as she tries to protect her son. This trauma causes Bruce to suppress these earliest childhood memories. General Ross arrests David and sends him to a mental hospital, sending 4-year-old Bruce into foster care as a result. He is eventually adopted by Ms. Kensler and assumes the last name, growing up under the belief that his birth parents have died. We then jump ahead about 30 years, and now Bruce is a brilliant scientist working at a lab in Berkeley with his ex-girlfriend, Betty Ross, who is the estranged daughter of General Ross. A man named Glenn Talbot, who is a representative of Atheon, a private research company, begins to take an interest in the work that Bruce and Betty have been doing on nanomeds in order to make soldiers regenerate for a military industrial complex. Out of nowhere, David resurfaces as a janitor at the lab building, looking to infiltrate Bruce's life. General Ross begins to investigate and becomes concerned for his daughter's safety around Bruce. Bruce is able to save Betty and their colleague, Harper, when a gamma sphere malfunctions, and when he awakens in a hospital, Bruce tells Betty that he feels better than ever. Betty can't begin to even fathom how Bruce survived, since the nanomeds have killed everything else that they have touched. Unbeknownst to them, the radiation merged with Bruce's already altered DNA. David shows up in Bruce's room after hours and reveals their relationship to Bruce, as well as hinting at Bruce's mutation. David later begins to use samples of Bruce's DNA for animal experimentation, and Bruce's increasing rage from the surrounding tensions activates his gamma-radiated DNA. As a result, he becomes a giant, green, raging humanoid monster called the Hulk, and he destroys the lab. The next morning, Betty finds Bruce unconscious at his home. He can barely remember the night before. General Ross shows up in order to question Bruce, while Betty seeks out David in order to investigate him. After hours of interrogation, General Ross seizes the lab and places Bruce under house arrest. Later that evening, David phones Bruce and informs him that he has successfully mutated 3 dogs and sicked them on Betty, which enrages Bruce. Glenn Talbot then shows up again and attacks Bruce about the lab and causes Bruce to transform and injure Talbot, as well as General Ross's military police. The Hulk finds Betty at her cabin in the forest and shares a moment with her before the dogs can arrive. The Hulk fights off and kills the dogs before changing back to Bruce. The next day, Betty contacts her father while the army sedates Bruce and takes him to the desert base, the location of the explosion 30 years prior. General Ross feels that Bruce is damned to follow in David's footsteps and doubts helping him. However, Betty is able to persuade her father to let her try and help Bruce control his changes. Meanwhile, David subjects himself to the nanomeds and the gamma sphere, which allows him to be able to meld with and absorb the properties of anything he touches. Talbot seizes control from General Ross and forces Betty to return home. Seeking to profit from the Hulk's power, Talbot puts Bruce into an isolation tank after failing to provoke him. David then confronts Betty at her house, and he offers to surrender himself in return for being able to speak to Bruce one more time. Talbot is able to induce a nightmare from Bruce's repressed memories and triggers a transformation into the Hulk. Talbot then traps the Hulk in sticky foam and attempts to take a sample from him, but the Hulk's rage enlarges him and he is able to break free. Talbot fires an explosive round at him, but it rebounds into a brick wall and explodes, killing Talbot and allowing General Ross to resume control. The Hulk is able to escape the base and battle the army in the desert. The Hulk then leaps to San Francisco in order to find Betty. General Ross is convinced by Betty to take her to the Hulk, which allows Bruce to then return back to normal. Bruce and David engage in conversation at a base in the city while General Ross watches threatening to incinerate the both of them. David has descended into megalomania, wanting Bruce's power to destroy his enemies. When Bruce refuses, David bites into a high-voltage cable and absorbs the energy, mutating into a powerful electrical creature. Bruce then transforms into the Hulk and confronts him, engaging in battle at Pear Lake. David attempts to absorb the Hulk's power, but the Hulk is able to overpower him. General Ross orders a gamma charge bomb in order to end the fight, which ends up killing David. We then flash forward 1 year, and General Ross has Betty under constant surveillance. Bruce is in a self-imposed exile within the confines of the Amazon rainforest as a medical camp doctor. A group of rebels invade the camp, attempting to steal medical supplies, and Bruce attempts to warn the leader that he's making him angry and that he wouldn't like him when he's angry. Our film ends with Bruce's eyes glowing green and the roar of the Hulk as the camera zooms out. Enjoy this film. I know there's a lot of people out there that crap on this film, and I guess to a certain degree I can understand it, but to a large degree I don't. I don't feel this film is as bad as people make it out to be. One of the things that I actually very much enjoy about the film is how the director, Ang Lee, paid homage to its comic book roots, specifically with the panel shots. Give you an example of what I'm talking about. That type of imagery is very much what you would expect to find inside of a Marvel comic book. And I really enjoyed that touch. Now, is that enough to save a movie? Of course not. But it's one of the things that really attracted me to it and made it stand out to me from some of the other superhero films, is the fact that it acknowledges that it is a comic book film by doing little nuances like that. And again, I know a lot of people feel this doesn't deserve to be within the confines of the MCU films. But again, ending up in the Amazon rainforest, starting back up in Brazil, 5 years in between the two films, as General Ross comments about in the second one. It's just a few of the things that I feel help tie the two films together. We can agree to disagree, and that's perfectly cool. But in my subjective opinion, this is the Hulk's origin story. Is it as good as Captain America? No. But I still enjoy it, and I give this film 3.5 out of 5 stars. Maybe that's high for some people. And again, if you disagree with me, let me know. You're watching the premiere, leave your comments over here. You're watching on demand, leave your thoughts down here. Where do you feel that I am wrong in my assessment of the Hulk? Tell me. I'm willing to take criticism. I'll even possibly read some of your guys' comments on Renegade Recap at the end of the month. But 3 out of 5 stars for me is what I deem the Hulk worthy of. Make sure you guys get out there on social media. Get those hashtags trending for me. Hashtag Casa D18 Studios, hashtag Renegades Reviews, hashtag Renegade Returns, and of course, the ever popular hashtag Shenanigans. We interrupt this episode of Renegades Reviews for an important announcement about
merchandising.
Merchandising? What's that?
Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, where the real money's made.
Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the t-shirts you see here from the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham himself. You can get shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network, Talk Wrestling, as well as the red and gold Meachamania shirts And while you're there, don't forget to get your shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Dads on Wrestling shirt, the Renegade JJ Williams, Statboy Sports Bar, and the hashtag StatboyApproved shirt. Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network and score your shirts today. Make sure you guys get out there. Do what that commercial just told you. Go to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the official merchandise of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood. Get you your t-shirts for myself, the Renegade JJ Williams, Dad's Not Always on Wrestling, Statboy Sports Bar, hashtag StatboyApproved, hashtag Shenanigans. Get you your official shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network. 3 different designs of the Jeff Meacham Network logo for you to choose from, along with Talk Wrestling, Meachamania, and more. Hey, it's summertime, and for me, that means pool parties, barbecue, beach bonfires. Go to the Teespring store, get yourself a tank top. You can choose between Meachamania and the Renegade JJ Williams. Either one would be the perfect accessory for those hot summer nights and those summer days. Get out there, show your love and support. While you're showing your love and support, do what that ticker tells you to do. Do you enjoy my content? Do you enjoy my daily videos? Go to that PayPal link, send me a couple dollar donation. Do you guys appreciate the fact that I'm out here in triple-digit heat where I am in my garage studio, putting together videos for you guys on a daily basis? If you are, show your gratitude. Go to that PayPal link, send me a couple bucks. Keep in mind, guys, I'm not monetized, so the only way I can make a few bucks right now is if you guys go to that PayPal link and send me a couple buck donation. Don't want to donate money? That's cool. Go to the link tree right there. Click on the link for my Amazon movie wish list. Find a movie you'd like to see me review. Purchase it when it comes, and I open it up on Renegade Recap. I'll give you guys a shout out. And then when I work it into my themes for the month and I cover it and review it, give you guys another shout out. And I'll give you guys the same amount of love that you guys show to me. So get out there, show me some support. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow, right back here on the Casa D18 Studios channel for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews as we keep pushing through the MCU officially this time again with 2008's Iron Man, starring Robert Downey Jr., Terrence Howard, Jeff Bridges, Gwyneth Paltrow, Paul Bettany, Leslie Bibb, Clark Gregg, and Jon Favreau. You're not going to want to miss out tomorrow as I take a look at the film that officially kickstarted the MCU but comes fourth in my timeline of chronological events, 2008's Iron Man. Thank you guys to all my loyal fans out there tuned in, watching the premiere, leaving your comments over here. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to all my loyal viewers that tune in a little bit later on in the day, watching on demand, leaving your comments and thoughts down here. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of my loyal viewers that tune in on a daily basis and support me. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.